And thank you for being here today again for our Long Island Teachers Institute. And, we want to say thank you to our session presenter, Monica Baker, who's here with us today. Thank you for joining us. Just a few reminders, of course, mute yourself unless, we'll have some sort of active participation. And feel free to utilize the chat area so that we can engage in some collegial dialogue and discussions, and of course enjoy your time here with us. And before we get started, we just wanted to remind you of a few of our resources. Of course, you can go to our website, and while you're there, join our mailing list to learn about upcoming professional development and other opportunities. But also, please visit our YouTube channel where we have recordings of past webinars and instructional snapshots. And soon we will also have our videos from today's LITI session. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand it over to Monica.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Erica, for that introduction. I'm Monica Baker. I'm actually not in Long Island. I am in the Hudson Valley area of New York. So I'm honored to be a guest there. I'm honorary Long Island. My sister's in Long Island, so that counts for something. But I am the New York State TESOL president this year. And so I am doing my best to attend as many ESL related events all over the state and all over the country. Virtually, it makes it possible. That's one benefit of this virtual world, that we can better connect. So I wasn't able to get in the car and drive to Long Island today, but here I am. So welcome. Thanks for being here. I am an elementary ENL teacher. I have taught at all grade levels, including tutoring college English language learners, but I'm currently working with elementary students. And in addition to being an ENL teacher, my passion is to advocate for English language learners and their families. So I think that we all kind of, if you work with English language learners, that's kind of part of the gig. Part of the deal is, as an ESL teacher, is that I'm working on making sure that the families I work with are connected, feel empowered, feel supported, have awareness and of what's going on in the schools, and also, have a voice, have an active role in what is happening, not just as a passive participant. So I'm going to get into all of that today, as well as sharing something kind of out of the box that I started doing this past year. Once again, kind of one of those unanticipated benefits of a global pandemic. So I'm going to share that with you in a little bit. So I am going to share my screen, and feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Let me know what you teach. Do you work with, are you an ENL teacher? Are you a classroom teacher? This session, while I am an ENL teacher and I'm talking about connecting with English language learners and their families, really pertains to any kind of family engagement. If you are seeking kind of an out of the box way to connect to families, this may be something to get you thinking. Not that you're going to want to do exactly what I did, but I love talking about family engagement. So if this gives you any ideas for connecting with families, then that's great. I hope it's helpful. So let me just share. I am also the most casual presenter you'll probably ever encounter. So feel free at any point, if you want to raise your hand, if you want to interrupt, if you want to jump right in and say something. If you're like, Monica, I have no idea what you're talking about, feel free to let me know so we can make it as interactive as possible if you want. Okay, so my presentation today is called Family Engagement in a Virtual World. And like I said, that's kind of my area of interest, in addition to actually being a teacher, trying to get families engaged. And I'm going to talk in a second about the difference between involvement and engagement, because that is something that people have published entire papers on. So I already gave you kind of my introduction. I'm in the Hudson Valley. I am the president of New York State TESOL. So a little pitch for that. If you're not a member of New York State TESOL, please join. It's a professional development organization, not just for ENL teachers, for every teacher who works with ELLs, because whether you teach science, pre-K, college level, English. We all, as New York State teachers, if you haven't had an English language learner in your class yet, you're going to have an English language learner in your class. So join us, because we offer a ton of opportunities to network, to talk about best practices, to talk about strategies, and to meet other people. So you can just say, hey, I'm working with this kid. I don't know what to do to best support this kid. And we can share and collaborate. I'm also a nationally board certified teacher. I just achieved that last week. So if you haven't gone through that process, also a little pitch, try that out. It was a great challenge. And yeah, that's a little bit about me. So why family engagement? Why is that something I'm interested in? Well, as an ENL teacher, I see families who sometimes they just moved to the country. Sometimes they've been here a while, but they don't feel necessarily connected to the school. And sometimes I hear my colleagues or my administrators saying things like, oh, the families of the ELLs don't do this or don't do that, or we can't get the message across. And so that always kind of irks me, like, okay, we have to then figure out how to do it. We can't just say, well, the families of ELLs don't do this or don't. It's our job as educators to make it happen. So that has kind of been my side focus, as I said, for many years. So involvement versus family engagement. It may seem like, oh, they're synonymous. We can, involvement versus engagement. We can say either one. So involvement is really more focused on just a passive way of having parents participate in some way. So when we say involvement, it's more like the school plans something and we send home a flyer and the parents show up, or they don't show up. They just kind of come, and like the school is giving, it's like one-way communication. The school is saying, here's this, sending it to parents, the end. No back and forth. The school staff also may feel that they kind of know already what the parents want or know what the parents need, and they're trying to kind of do this for the parents and hand it off to the parents. Family engagement is a little bit different than that. So with family engagement, we're looking at parents actually having more of a voice, more buy-in from the parents, so that parents are, they're present at the table for maybe planning or decision making. They're asked, what do you need? What do you want? How can we as educators or as a school district best support you? And so it's that two-way communication, and it's really getting parents a little bit more empowered to be active. And now that's easier said than done, as we all know, because there are so many obstacles to actually doing that. But that's always kind of my goal, not just like, here's a flyer, I'm going to hand it to parents and see what happens. Trying to get parents to have more of a voice, be more actively engaged. And thank you. If you joined after the start, feel free to keep introducing yourself in the chat. Let me know what you teach, where you work, what levels you work with, just so that I can make sure I'm kind of, being as inclusive as possible. And if you're not an ENL teacher, thank you for coming, because as I said, this workshop kind of pertains to family engagement in general. Even though I'm an ENL teacher, it really applies to everybody and every area. Okay, so this is kind of what I just talked about, involvement versus engagement and those relationships. But now, why do we want parents to be engaged or involved? Well, look at this. I think this really speaks for itself. This is really amazing when you look at the benefits, when studies have been done of students whose parents are actively involved in their education. And this is regardless of background or income. Look at the benefits. Higher grades, higher test scores, higher enrollment in higher level programs, kids being promoted, kids passing their classes, earning their credits, better attendance, better social skills, behavior improvement, students adapting better to their schooling environment, and finally, kids graduating and continuing on to post-secondary education. All of this came from this. I cited one study here, Southwest Educational Development Laboratory, but there are multiple studies that show similar data. So really, it's a win-win. Families are involved, and there are a tremendous list of possible benefits. The only, what's the downside? Well, planning, extra time, really it's the downfall is, that we have to put in the effort to make it happen. But once it happens, these benefits speak for themselves. It's basically what we want as educators. We want all of this. So if we know that it's a cause and effect, we get parents involved, we get more of this. That's kind of like, why we do it. That's why we do it. So over the years, I have been involved in many, many planning teams to try to get parents to come to the schools. I've been an ELL teacher in my district for 16 years. And over those years, I have planned or been part of a planning team that's had like potluck dinners and community days, community nights, events on the weekends, events after school. Here is a photo of me and a bunch of my colleagues. A few years ago, we planned like the Reading Rocks Family Literacy Night. And we got props and we had a theme and we got gift cards. We had prizes. We had food and snacks. We like threw it all together. We were so excited. This is like 2 months of planning. We got some grant funds to be able to buy books, bilingual books. You can see us before it started. We were like all in. This is going to be great. And the event happened. And let me see. There it is. There is a photo of the complete number of students that attended. I work in a small elementary school with about 200 kids, but some of those kids in this picture are our own kids. These aren't even all the students who attended with their parents. So hugely disappointing after all that effort. Look, a handful of kids. I didn't take a photo of the parents, but you can kind of, guess how many parents looking at how many kids showed up. So this was with bribing families basically with gift cards, incentives, promoting on Facebook, promoting with flyers, trying to reach out to families. So you may feel, I don't know if any of you have had events like this. Feel free to share in the chat or unmute yourself if you want to. This problem where like we put in all this work and it's like pulling teeth, no one shows up and it's so frustrating. And then everyone, my team on the left that was so excited and happy and like, okay, Monica, we'll stay after work. We'll do this with you. They're like, oh my God, never again. And so I'm like, oh, how do we, but what about all those great benefits when we get families involved? Well, this is an example right here of an event that was more of a parent involvement event. We didn't ask the parents if they wanted this Reading Rocks Literacy Night. We didn't ask anyone. We thought that would be great. We'll give parents reading tips. We'll have prizes. We'll invite the kids too, and we can do a book. And so we kind of came up with the whole thing. We picked the date. We picked the time. We decided that gift cards would be the answer and tons of people would show up. Well, clearly we were wrong. And that picture speaks for itself. A very, very sad moment. So here are, let me just wait for this slide to change. Here's some other examples of things we tried. In addition to Family Literacy Day, I said we tried potluck dinners. Potluck dinners are great, but it was like a once a year thing. People showed up, they ate food, they left. It was kind of like, it wasn't giving us, I think when we talk about parent engagement, it's got to be a little more than like showing up, eating some food and going home. We need a little bit more than that. We're teachers after all, we're educators. So we needed some educational components. So the potluck dinners had the people, but not really any content or anything that made us feel like we were successful. We did movie nights, fluff events like that, lackluster attendance, parent workshops, terrible attendance. And the Family Literacy Day was what I showed you before. In addition, community days, different things. This was, every year. It's like, I'm beating a dead horse. Like, let's do another event. And all my colleagues are like, okay, let's try it again with not a lot of improvement. So everyone's like, we need to look at this again. Why are we even doing this? So I decided to do a survey. Do parents even want these additional programs to support their child's literacy development? Because that was really a focus of the ones where I tried to have an academic component. I tried to make it really about literacy, because we all know kids need support with literacy, especially English language learners, but really everyone. When I created this survey, I was like, this was the point I was like, I think I'm going to pull the plug on these events. This was September 2019. This is not really academic. This is not a really science and research-based study. This was a very informal survey. So this was me asking just one question in English and Spanish and getting it out to all of the families I work with in the elementary school. And if they didn't return the survey, like I said, I did whatever I needed to get the responses. I called, I texted, I said, can you just answer this one question for me? So, take it with a grain of salt, because families may have felt a little pressured, like Miss Baker's calling and asking us this question. So take it with a grain of salt. However, look at the response there. Just when I'm like, why are we even doing these? 94.7% of parents said, yes, we want programs. So I was like, okay, this is interesting. If they're saying they want programs, then clearly we're doing something wrong, because they're not coming to the ones we keep offering. But this data point was what then I said, okay, I got back to the drawing board. I have to keep figuring out a way to make it happen. By the way, feel free to put in the chat, have you had the same level of frustration trying to get families to come to things, planning things, and there's poor attendance, not feeling like you're really connecting with families? Feel free to put that in the chat. So I came up with a new plan. My new plan was based on this data. I said, okay, got to keep going. I am going to develop a new plan for a bilingual story hour, like a story program. And I really was using inspiration from many years ago when I had toddlers, and I would go to those story hours at the library. Like on summer vacation, I would take my kids to the library, and it was actually more for me than for them. I needed to get out of the house. I wanted to commiserate with other parents who were tired and talk about our parenting woes. I wanted to get out of the house. I wanted to relax and have someone else read my kid a story for an hour. So there was always a craft too, and it was very low key, and the moms and dads would sit around and the kids would maybe not even do the craft, but rip up all the little papers and things. And some moms or dads would do the craft for the kids, and I would just sit there and relax and let my kids kind of make a big mess with the glitter and the glue and whatever, because it was but it was nice to be out of the house with my kids, having someone else kind of lead it. So I thought about that model, and this is what I based this on. So I thought, okay, if I do a bilingual story hour and I have the same book, English and Spanish, and I do a really simple craft or project. Oops, sorry, my dog's working. My dog's coughing. A really simple craft or project that family members and students can work on together. So it's whoever shows up can do the craft. It'll be low key. I would get all the materials. I would do it once a month after school in the elementary building. And I would also model best practices for reading instruction. So while I'm doing a book talk, I would model things for parents like questioning, predicting, how to get your kids engaged with books, how to talk about the pictures. So this was my big plan. I was motivated, and the anticipated launch date, I was all set, was, and I also got some grant funds. Anticipated launch date, March 2020. Obviously, you're all New Yorkers, that's COVID. So it didn't happen. Here I am getting the flyers ready, and okay, no, the school building shut down. We all immediately are sent home with no notice. We're all shut down due to COVID. We switched to remote learning on a day's notice. Everything's unknown, as if you all went through this last year. We're trying to find students who are MIA. We're trying to make connections. We're trying to deal with tech issues, lack of Wi-Fi for some families. We're delivering food. We're doing all of this. So parent engagement kind of ended up like on the back burner. But meanwhile, all the materials I ordered for this program with some grant funds I got are piling up in my kitchen. I should have taken a picture of that. My entire kitchen was full of boxes of books in English and Spanish, the materials for the like art projects that I got, markers, pencil, everything. Boxes piled up in my kitchen, and I'm learning how to be a remote teacher. So all of that got put on the back burner, and I'm like, forget family engagement. Let's try to just make sure we survive until the next day, and let's figure out how to find these kids who, you know, don't have Wi-Fi. But after about 2 months of the boxes in my kitchen, my own kids were like, Mom, what is all this stuff? What are you going to do with it? And I was like, oh yeah, I gotta do something with this stuff. So that's when I started to wonder, you know, things had calmed down a little bit, and I started to wonder, would families attend some sort of virtual bilingual program? Could I take my plan, tweak it, and make it something that would work online? So that was my like moment where I was like, okay. And it was in the beginning, I have to admit, it was more about like getting the boxes out of my kitchen. I was like, I got to get these in the hands of families. They're doing no good for anyone sitting in my kitchen on the floor. So I came up with a new plan. I revised my plan. And the first thing I did though was, this is where I like finally started to learn, okay, I need to ask the parents if they want this, how they would do it. So I planned a parent info meeting, and I was a little bit sneaky here. There were a lot of questions and concerns from parents about at this time, like what's happening with the school? Is it reopening? You know, is there parents struggling still with the tech issues? Is there, you know, are there free Wi-Fi hotspots available? A lot of that. And the school, you know, as many schools, was not doing always, you know, a fabulous job of communicating. So there were a lot of questions, and we don't have many Spanish speaking faculty and staff in my building. So they were calling and texting me, and they're like, Ms. Baker, what's happening? So I said, okay, I'm doing an information session in Spanish and English. Come to this meeting, and I'm going to try to answer all your questions. So I got a ton of families because they needed this information. And I was telling them all of that. I'm like, if you're not getting food delivery and you need food delivery, this is what you do. This is where, you know, I'm helping them solve all these essential issues that they're dealing with. But then in this meeting, I said, and this was only parents, by the way, this wasn't children, although some children, you know, are always kind of around or popping their heads in. Hi, Ms. Baker. So I said, you know, I'm talking to the parents now. I'm like, do you guys want to have another meeting maybe next week to follow up on this stuff? And they were like, oh, yes. There's still so many things we're unclear about and need more information. So that's when I said, well, what works for you all? And that's when something really kind of cool happened. I shut up, and the parents started asking each other and saying things like, well, I work on Sundays, but do you work on Wednesdays? They started to actually just like talk to each other on Zoom and figure it out. And they decided that the most of them were available Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. So I really had this was all of them. I would never have chosen Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. I think that's kind of late. Kids may be going to bed. Parents may be exhausted. But they said that would be our preferred time when most of us are available. And I said, okay, that works for you guys. I'm in. I'll be here. Same Zoom link next week at 8. And most of them came back next week at 8. And I said, if you want to bring your kids, bring your kids. So the kids, remember, this is all on Zoom. So same Zoom link, they come back. And the next time, in addition to giving the information, I showed them my boxes. I said, I have so many books I got in English and Spanish. I would love to read them to your kids. And I also got all these supplies. I'm going to bring them to your houses. I'm going to drop them off. And would you come back next week with your kids, and I can read the books and we can. And so that was how this kind of blossomed in a very kind of organic way, where all of a sudden, so I got in my car with all the stuff, and I did home drop-offs for every single one of the families. Here's what I think was really critical. I did not ask anyone to sign up for this. I did not ask anyone to commit. There was no sign up, no registration. I just dropped off the materials for everybody at their doorstep and said, I hope you can make it Wednesday at 8. And, when there was that no pressure to sign up or commit, because you know how it is when you're like, oh, there's that meeting, but I have to sign up. I don't know. Maybe I'll sign up later. You put it off. You're not sure you can commit to it, so you don't end up signing up. So I took that off the table, and I made it. Another thing that I think was a win is I, right from the start, as you can tell, like I said, I'm a very casual presenter. Well, I'm casual with my parents too, because I always want to make sure that they feel comfortable and that they can talk to me and ask me, and that it's not kind of this intimidating presentation. It's casual, Miss Baker. I'm gonna, giving you information you need, and now I'm gonna make it a story hour too. So finally, the other thing was, like I said, same Zoom link. I used my same Zoom link every time. Didn't change it, and I used the same Zoom link for my teaching too. This is where some schools have rules about that. Changing your Zoom link, locking it with a password, whatever. I took the chance and I said, no password. Well, there's a password, but very easy to remember password. And the same Zoom link for teaching and for these sessions. So the kids knew how to get to me, even if the parents didn't. The kids were already Zooming with me. They all knew my Zoom link. All I had to do was say, remember Wednesday night at 8, and they knew how to get to me. So these were the components, the main components that I included. Story in English, same story in Spanish, related craft or project, just like those old school story hours at the library that I did a million years ago. Plus, I started to think, okay, I'm going to incorporate time for conversation, sharing, make it kind of a way for parents when we were all feeling very isolated anyway in our own homes. For many of us who were like, COVID was really hitting hard at that point. People needed time to talk and share. Sometimes I would do a song. And then also, I started to kind of do like a little bit of a basic English lesson for some of the parents who spoke no English. So if we read a story about like family members, I would take a minute, share my screen, and show them like the English word and the Spanish word for mom, or the English word or the Spanish word for daughter. So I incorporated a little English, and I could see some parents who may not have been really like present on the screen would kind of like peek their head in. I would be like, oh, here's a quick English lesson. Remember, I'm doing it. I'm going back and forth, English and Spanish. And my Spanish, by the way, it's not perfect, but no one cares. If any of you speak intermediate level Spanish, I highly encourage you to use it as much as possible. Do not be hesitant to use it. The Spanish speaking families I work with are so happy to hear me, with all of my mistakes, speak Spanish to them, because it really helps for that connection. Really helps. I put my guard down, and they know. No one has ever said, oh, Monica, like you did not conjugate that verb correctly. Never in 16 years has a parent said, oh, your Spanish is horrible. I say that first. I say, sorry, my Spanish is bad. And they say, no problem. And no one cares. So let me see. There was a question about, do you do each page in English and Spanish? No, what I do is I read the whole book, and I've switched. I've read the whole book in English and then the whole book in Spanish. And then sometimes I read the whole book in Spanish first and then the whole book in English. I have not gone back and forth page by page. I feel that, although some people may prefer that, we could look at, if you wanted to do research and see like if that would be more beneficial. I just felt for the flow of it, it's nice to just do the whole thing in one language and then a whole thing again in another language. For me, that tends to work. But I don't think there's one way to do it. Okay, and I also, one final component, also kept giving the parents information, because I felt that that was the way to keep them coming back, so that it didn't just turn into a time for children. Parents knew I was also going to be saying, oh, an update on the buses. Next week, the buses are going to be coming a little bit late. So I always included some like important school information that they knew I was going to have. Communication. I reached out to parents every way possible. I was texting, I was using WhatsApp, I was using Facebook Messenger. Once again, it all depends on your comfort zone. Also, if you're a member of a union, I'm the vice president of my local. So I feel a little bit, sometimes I do things that I would not advise an untenured teacher to become Facebook friends with parents. But in my point in my career, I feel I know how to do that safely. And so I reached out to parents every way possible, every single week. By the way, remember how I initially planned to do this monthly? I scrapped that and decided to start doing it weekly. And I guess I'm a bit of a masochist, but the reason I did this was because I didn't want to lose anyone. I was worried that if I said, I'll see you next month, no one was going to remember. So I said, nope, see you on Wednesday at 8. That's when we do this. So I kept doing it every Wednesday at 8. Well, here is, once again, my very casual data collection. 92% of ELL parents at the elementary level have attended at least one of these sessions. And if I collected more data, I would look at how many have attended many of the sessions. But I do know that 92% of ELL parents have attended at least one. And for those who haven't, I still I touch base with them other ways. But this is, for me, for someone who has struggled with getting parents connected for so many years, this is like something I want to show off left and right. Like, look, I got all these parents to come to my Zoom meetings. Some of the unexpected wins of this program. Families showed up every week. I did not expect the level of participation and engagement on an ongoing basis. They keep showing up. Another amazing point. Kids started to ask if they could read some of the pages. I did not even think of that when I was throwing this program together. The kids asked me, Ms. Baker, can I read a little bit of the book? I was like, oh my God, yes, of course. Anytime our kids are volunteering to read, fabulous. So I was like, yes, so now that becomes part of it, where sometimes a kid will read a sentence. Sometimes I say, ooh, that's a tricky sentence for me to read in Spanish. Can anyone read that in Spanish and help me out? And the kids jump in. There are little siblings who are non-readers trying to mimic their older siblings reading. I have had babies, toddlers, grandmas, everyone under the sun show up to these sessions. Infants, moms holding infants, grandmas in the back cooking while I'm doing it. And they pop their head in. I don't ask anyone to sit and keep your camera on and be structured, because it's casual. So that has been another win, that people don't feel like they have to sit there the whole time. They can come and go as they want. Pajamas were also an unexpected kind of fun win. Because it's 8:00 at night, kids started to show up in their pajamas, and it became really like a bedtime story, which was another really kind of cool thing. I really did feel like I was kind of like, I'm here for your bedtime story in English and Spanish. I hope you enjoy it. So that was, and the kids would actually like show off their pajamas. They'd be like, look, Miss Baker, look my pajamas this week. So another cool, just little additional win. As far as the craft component, I am the least artistic person in the world, but I tried to come up with very, very simple projects and crafts that tied into stories. On the top left, there's an example of a girl who made a flower and wrote the names of her family members in the different leaves. That was one project we did. We did hearts. And sometimes I would ask the kids if you can write a sentence or write more than a sentence. For kids who weren't able to write, I've got, like I said, very little kids who join. They draw pictures. Sometimes the moms and the kids, or the dads and the kids, color together. They'll be working on one paper and they'll collaborate. On the top right, we read a book about owls, and there was just a cute picture the girl did. Sometimes I'll pull up even a YouTube video like that one. It was like really like a 2-minute video, someone on YouTube saying, here's an easy way to draw an owl. And we all watched it together to go along with our book. And then we talked about and shared our drawings. On the bottom were some STEM challenges. using like basic materials in your house. We read Three Billy Goats Gruff in English and Spanish. And I said, go find whatever you can right now. Can you build a bridge? And families collaborated and grabbed materials and just used whatever they had. A family did cereal boxes, cereal box bridge. Some kids grabbed their Legos. On the bottom right was this amazing thing. A girl had just celebrated her birthday, and we read a book about airplanes and flying, different kinds of things, ways you could go in the sky and fly. And she created that little box with her doll in it and stuck her balloon on it. And it was very, very, very cool to share. And she got so excited. So I did some data collection, very basic data collection after the program, or after the program had ran for several months. I asked, once again, keep it very simple. I said, after participating in this program, do you now read more, less, or the same amount of time with your child as you did before the program? Remember, this is not scientific research. This is just very basic. I'm trying to collect some very basic data. 84% of families who responded said they now read more with their child. 16% said about the same amount. No one said less. Remember, take it with a grain of salt because they're talking to me and they probably want to make sure that I, feel good about everything. But still, anytime we can collect some information from parents, that's a good thing as well. And also it's giving parents a voice. Finally, has the program, this is my other question, had a positive effect on your child's interest and willingness to read and discuss books at home? 100% said yes, that the program has made kids more interested in books, and they don't have to be readers. Even I told you, like the 3-year-old who joins every week is excited about what book we're going to share. Okay, so here are my final takeaways. Why did this program work? It was super informal. It's bilingual. It's inclusive. Everyone can come anytime. It's fun. I keep it very light and fun, and it's predictable. Wednesday at 8 every single week. The parents know what to expect. I don't put anyone on the spot. The parents don't have to drive anywhere. Same Zoom link, same time. And that has, I think, also really contributed to it being successful. Finally, just some ideas. This may not be, like I said, this may not be a model of a program that you can incorporate or want to incorporate in your own district. But I'm always, like I said, very interested in family engagement. So here are some other ideas, suggestions from an article from Coleraine, Colorado. Know your families. Like I said, get them interested in giving them a voice. Find out what they want. Do they want a program? Because if they don't, why are we doing it? Ask them when, where, how should you do it? Do you want it on Zoom? Low stress, make those personal connections. Value families' culture and language. Like I said, even if you're not completely bilingual, incorporate home language when possible. It creates a really inclusive environment. Communication, easy enrollment when possible. My biggest takeaway, I'm never going to have families register for an event again. I'm just going to try to have families show up if they can, even if they have to come late. And then reflect and make changes. What works, what doesn't work. I just wanted to end with, this is a quote from one of my 7-year-old students. She said this to me verbally and I dictated it. She said, I love Wednesday nights. They're special because it's like Miss Baker is in our house reading us a bedtime story, and mom listens too and helps me with the art projects. So that, I thought she really did a great job of just capturing why why it works, what the kids like about it. The kids ask me, by the way, in front of their English speaking classmates sometimes, Miss Baker, Wednesday night at 8. And I'm like, and the other kids look, like the kids who are not part of this program, the American non-ELL students are like, what is happening Wednesday night at 8? It's almost like this secret club now that the kids are really jealous about. So finally, just, reflect for yourself. Would a virtual family engagement program work for you? Feel free to share any thoughts in the chat. And finally, let me just see if anyone had any questions. I know there were some comments. Where did I get great books in English and Spanish? Sorry, my kids are talking over me. I apologize. I got some grant money from a local community organization, and I purchased the cheapest books. I keep buying more. I keep buying more books that I can find in English and Spanish. If I can't find the book in Spanish and I want to do it, I have shared my screen and shared the electronic version. So some of the books have been actually in the hands of the families. Other books that I have not been able to purchase, I have just shared my screen and read it by sharing on Epic or another free site on the internet. Someone else said, do you use electronic translators for parents? I do not. I speak Spanish and use my own knowledge of Spanish to be able to communicate with families. But I highly suggest, if your district is not translating everything, that's something that, with ESSA regulations, every parent communication should be going home in the parent's preferred language. So please, if you want to advocate for ELLs, please continue to fight for that. Google Translate has come a long way. It's not perfect. However, it's better than nothing. So if you were, sending something home and the families do not read in English, Google Translate's better than nothing. But when possible, have a fluent Spanish speaker read it over for you. Someone said, I was having problems with Epic, and on a whim, I YouTubed, found chapter books. Yeah, I just try to use whatever resources I can find. Another site is what is it? Literacy. Unite for Literacy is another website that has books in English and Spanish. They're very basic. Someone said Epic is not 2D compliant in New York. We cannot use it. Oh, my district uses it on the student iPads. They have the app on all of the student iPads. So someone else said, what did you do? Families just don't want to be engaged with their child's education. Well, this program was completely optional. I did not force anyone to come to this. So this was just an example of something I did that continues to be optional. There are always some families that are going to have, reasons for not being able to be more involved. They're working, there's too much going on. Sometimes families don't feel comfortable coming into the building, but this has created a place where they do feel safe on Zoom. And like I said, some families don't want to show their faces, and that's okay. But I can see that they're with their child. Just some parents don't feel comfortable being on camera, and that's okay. I never made that a have to. It was always just, come if you can, bring your kids if you can, bring anyone who can. Someone said there are very few families who don't want to be involved. Yeah, most families it usually comes down to time, schedules, balancing everything, families with multiple kids, families with, working numerous jobs, and just being able to, to commit that extra time. But I try to make sure everyone is at least involved by sending home information that they can read, by frequent communication online, over the phone, texting, any way I can. So yeah, I think involvement is essential. Engagement when possible. Parents having that voice is the goal. But even one-way communication at the very least is necessary. Finally, last thing I just want to promote, New York State TESOL is having a little social on March 25th at 5 o'clock. You do not need to be a member of New York State TESOL. We're doing it in conjunction with the TESOL International Conference. You don't need to attend that at all. This is just an open social to get anyone who teaches ELLs, who works with ELLs, to come hang out, network. We're going to have prizes, a virtual toast. It's like a happy hour online. So come, just register. This is something you do need to register for at nystesol.org. And that is all I have today. So does anyone else have any questions, comments?
I just want to thank you so much, Monica. That was a fantastic presentation. And I did drop the evaluation link in the chat just a few moments ago.
Thank you.
please just, give us some feedback. We love hearing from everyone. I'm going to drop it in the chat again in case anyone missed it. And we also invite you, like I said, visit our YouTube channel. We have been putting together a whole lot of parent sessions. So if you're struggling to do this in multiple languages, we've done it for you. And we invite parents from all over Long Island to join. So please take a look at those links on YouTube, visit our website. Thank you again, Monica, and thank you everyone for attending. It is now time to go to session 2. So we will see you soon. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone.